31 years. Think about that number for a second. 3 decades. A lifetime. Could you ever truly look at your neighbor, your friend, the person you wave to every morning, and realize they've been hiding a secret so dark, so cold, that it defies everything you thought you knew about them? I'm talking about a kind of betrayal that rips the fabric of a whole town apart. Welcome to Detected Cold Cases, your daily dive into the world of unsolved mysteries, forgotten crimes, and chilling cases that still haunt investigators. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new revelation. I'm Detective Alex Riley, and I've been working cold cases here in Madison, Wisconsin for the better part of a decade. Most of the files I handle are just that, cold dead ends, ghost stories bound in brittle paper. But the case of James Miller was different. It didn't just feel cold, it felt like a silent scream trapped in time. The year was 1991. The fall air in Madison was sharp and clean, the kind that smelled like wood smoke and turning leaves. James was only 8 years old, a kid with bright red hair, a splatter of freckles across his nose, and a smile that could melt the Wisconsin winter. He loved 2 things more than anything: his baseball glove and the Sunday school class at St. Michael's Church. It was just a 2-block walk from his house, past Mrs. Henderson's perfect rose bushes and the big oak tree on the corner. 2 blocks. That's all it was. A walk any kid in the neighborhood made 100 times a year. On October 13, 1991, James put on his best pair of jeans, grabbed his worn-out children's Bible, and headed out the door at 9:15 a.m. His mother, Clara, watched him go, feeling that universal peace a parent feels when their child is just where they are supposed to be. She told him, "Be back by noon, sweetie, we're having meatloaf." He yelled back, "I will, Mom." That was the last time she ever saw him. He never made it to St. Michael's. He vanished somewhere between Mrs. Henderson's roses and the church's front steps. Just gone, like a puff of smoke in the bright morning light. Now imagine that moment 31 years ago. The panic, the frantic calls, the police cars descending on the quiet, tree-lined street. The initial hours are chaos, right? Everyone is shouting, searching, praying. They searched the park, the woods near the lake, every basement, every shed. They drained a small pond a mile away, just to be sure. Nothing. No witness. No struggle. Not a single trace of a red-haired boy. The local news ran James's photo for weeks. His face became a symbol of a town's lost innocence. Do you remember a time when a child going missing was all anyone could talk about? It felt like the air itself had been sucked out of the city. For years, the case file sat on a shelf, gathering dust. Detective Jack O'Connell, the original lead, retired heartbroken, convinced the answer was right there in the paperwork. But he just couldn't see it. He told me once, before he passed, "Riley, that case is a poison. It sticks to your soul. Don't let it get you." But how do you not let it get you? James was 8. He deserved an ending. The Millers deserved the truth. In 2022, I pulled the file. It was a massive, crumbling box. Hundreds of pages of interviews, forensic reports, and dead-end tips. I'm a simple guy. I believe in simple logic. When a complex case yields no answers, the answer is often found in the most simple, overlooked detail. The thing everyone dismissed because it was too mundane. I started from the beginning, page 1, photo 1. I wasn't looking for a monster. I was looking for a misplaced object. The early photos of the church grounds were useless, mostly shots of the search teams and the desperate crowd. Then I found the evidence logs for the photographs taken in the immediate aftermath, just before the crime scene tape went up. Photo 14A. It was a grainy, black and white shot of the alleyway behind the church. An overflow parking area. In the distance, tucked between 2 dumpsters, was a mid-sized, dusty sedan. The original log entry read, "Vehicle registered to parishioner, Mrs. Eleanor Davies. Car was present during initial search. Cleared." Standard procedure, right? It's Sunday morning. Cars are parked everywhere. Why would a car parked behind the church matter when James disappeared on the street 2 blocks away? It was a nothing detail. And for 31 years, it was a nothing detail. But I stared at that photo for an hour. I'd seen thousands of these pictures. The car was slightly out of focus, but I noticed something strange about the back bumper. It was a black car, covered in a fine layer of road dust. But on the left side of the license plate, there was a tiny, faded rectangle. It looked like a sticker. Why would that matter? A sticker on a car from 1991? It shouldn't, unless that sticker was unique. I sent the photo, 14A, to our digital forensics team. Their job was to zoom, sharpen, and enhance. It took them 3 days. 3 long days of me pacing my office, drinking cold coffee, and telling myself I was wasting everyone's time on an old car sticker. When the enhanced image finally came back, my heart actually stuttered. It wasn't just a sticker. It was a logo. Faded, almost completely rubbed away, but the distinct, jagged outline of a pine tree was clear, with small, simple block lettering beneath it. The letters read, Holcomb Hardware, Kenosha. Kenosha. That's 200 miles away from Madison. Why would a car belonging to a Madison parishioner, Mrs. Davies, have a license plate frame from a small hardware store in Kenosha? This was the first loop, the first thread in the massive, tangled knot. I remember leaning back in my chair, that old, squeaky office chair, and thinking, okay, James, let's see where this takes us. I pulled the parishioner list for 1991. Mrs. Eleanor Davies. 87 years old then. She passed away 10 years ago. Her car, a 1988 Ford Tempo, was sold to a private buyer in 1992, according to DMV records. Now follow me here. Mrs. Davies was cleared because the car was registered to her. But what if the car wasn't hers that day? What if someone else was driving it? Or even more simple, what if the car wasn't her 1988 Ford Tempo? I went back to the log. Vehicle registered to parishioner, Mrs. Eleanor Davies. The original officer likely just saw an older woman's name on a car and cleared it without checking the make or model. Back then, things were slower and technology was minimal. The license plate was in the photo, but the plate number was too blurry to read, even with the enhancement. But I had something better than a plate number, a temporal and geographic fingerprint. Holcomb Hardware, Kenosha, 1991. I called the Kenosha Sheriff's Office. Holcomb Hardware had gone out of business in 1995. But the son of the owner, who now ran a small plumbing supply store, still had some of the old business records in boxes in his attic. Turns out that specific pine tree logo license plate frame was a special promotional item Holcomb Hardware only gave out between late 1990 and mid-1991. And they kept a small log of the customers who received one as a free gift with a large purchase. This is where the fear starts to creep in, because now you're dealing with a specific person. We cross-referenced the Holcomb Hardware list with the Madison Police Department's list of anyone interviewed in the initial James Miller search. The list was long, but one name jumped out like a warning siren: Thomas Peterson. Thomas Peterson was interviewed briefly in 1991. He lived 4 blocks from James and was a volunteer at St. Michael's, helping set up chairs for events. He claimed he was home all morning, working in his yard. His name was a footnote in the file, a dead end. But Peterson's name was on the Holcomb Hardware list. He had purchased a new set of power tools in April of 1991, and with that purchase, he received the promotional license plate frame. Now, why would Thomas Peterson, who lived 4 blocks away and had his own car, be driving a car with a Kenosha license plate frame and then park it behind the church, far away from the front street where he lived, and then tell police he was home working in his yard? The pieces were starting to click together, not with the crash of a dropped object, but with the chilling snick of a lock being opened. The first thing I did was run a full background check on Thomas Peterson. What I found made the hairs stand up on my arm. He wasn't some shadowy figure hiding in the background. Thomas Peterson was a beloved figure in the community, the kind of man who won local awards for his service. He owned Peterson's Pharmacy downtown, the one with the spinning red and white sign. He sponsored the youth soccer team, coached the Little League, and volunteered every Christmas to hand out toys at the hospital. 31 years had not only hidden his secret, but had built him a fortress of respectability. He was a pillar, a rock, a man everyone trusted. Think about that. The person who disappeared a child could be the person you buy your medication from. The person your kids look up to on the soccer field. It makes you question every face you see on the street, doesn't it? The time for simple paperwork was over. Now it was time for surveillance. I needed to see the man who James Miller's killer had become. I staked out Peterson's pharmacy. From my unmarked car across the street, I watched him. He was tall, silver-haired, with kind eyes and a gentle way of talking to his customers. He'd hand a grandmother her prescription, chat about the weather, and ask a young boy about his last game. He looked like the picture of an upstanding citizen. And every time I saw him smile, I felt a cold dread settle in my stomach. I got a warrant to tap his phone, a warrant to track his car, and a warrant to put cameras near his home. We found nothing. The man was a saint. He went to work, he went to church, St. Michael's, the same church, and he went home. He was perfect. Too perfect. A person who has successfully hidden a terrible secret for 31 years doesn't make simple mistakes. They are masters of routine. I had to find the physical connection. The what that tied him to James. I went back to the original crime scene, James's route to church. 2 blocks. Mrs. Henderson's house, the oak tree, then the church. The attack had to have been quick, efficient, and silent. He was 8 years old. He wasn't a threat. I reviewed the neighborhood search pattern from 1991 again. The police had focused on finding James. They missed the simple question, where did James stop? A child walking to church is focused. He wouldn't stop for a stranger unless that stranger was familiar. Someone he knew, someone who offered him something small and harmless. Maybe a baseball card. Maybe a cute puppy in the car. I had a theory, but I needed proof. I needed to know where James had ended up. I needed to find a body, or I had nothing but a suspicious car and a 3-decade-old lie about yard work. I focused on Peterson's 1991 car, the one with the Kenosha frame. We tracked down the new owner. It was a college kid who had totaled the car in 1995. The wreckage was crushed and sent to a landfill. A dead end literally. But I didn't give up on the vehicle. I found the original vehicle identification number, the VIN, in the DMV records. With that number, I could track the vehicle's history, not just its ownership. The car was a company car, a loaner from the Kenosha hardware store to Peterson when his primary car was being serviced. He had kept it for 3 months, exactly the window surrounding James's disappearance. The car was never Mrs. Davies's. Peterson had loaned the car to a friend who worked at the church, and that friend had given Mrs. Davies a ride, explaining why the car was registered to a parishioner. The original log entry was a sloppy mess of assumptions and hearsay. The key was Peterson's lie. I was home all morning, working in my yard. If I could prove he was not working in his yard, I could get a search warrant for his current home. This seemed impossible after 31 years. But wait, this is Madison. It's a city that takes its history seriously. I reached out to the local historical society. Did they have any records of neighborhood photography contests in the fall of 1991? Any local newsletters with neighborhood photos? Anything that showed the Miller Street on October 13th? It was a long shot, but I had to try. And this is where the loops of fate start to tie together in the most unexpected way. The Historical Society's archive had digitized old neighborhood newsletters. In the October 1991 edition of the St. Michael's Parish Ponderings, there was an article about the upcoming fall festival and a photo contest announcement. They ran a sample photo from the previous month to encourage submissions. The picture was a beautiful, slightly blurry shot of the big oak tree on the corner, the one James would have passed. The caption read, "A snapshot of fall on Maple Street." I didn't care about the oak tree. I cared about the background. The photo was taken directly across the street from Thomas Peterson's house. In the picture in Peterson's driveway was his primary car, a bright blue sedan. And standing next to it was a garden gnome, a detail that would prove everything. The next photo contest sample was in the November newsletter. Same oak tree, same shot, the same caption. But in this photo, the blue sedan was gone. And where was Peterson? He said he was doing yard work. But the area of his yard visible in the photo was neat, and more importantly, the little garden gnome was missing, and the spot where the blue sedan usually sat was now empty, and covered in a fresh layer of fallen leaves. If he was working in his yard, why would he park his main car somewhere else? And why, in a neighborhood where everyone knew James was missing, would the newsletter run a photo from the day James vanished? Wait a minute. Was this photo taken on October 13th? I checked the details again. The photo contest submission deadline was October 20th. The picture was dated mid-October. The angle of the sun and the amount of fallen leaves were consistent with the day of the disappearance. I found the photographer, a retired English teacher named Helen, still living in the same house. She remembered the day vividly, not because of James, but because the weather was perfect. She had snapped the picture that morning around 9:30 a.m. before heading to the market. She confirmed the blue sedan was gone. That Mr. Peterson was always so tidy, she recalled. He kept that yard perfect. I think he'd taken his car out that day because the street was too crowded with all those police cars later. Perfect. Peterson lied about being home and about his car. He had used the hardware store's loaner car, parked it behind the church, and left his main car elsewhere, perhaps in his garage, to maintain his story of being home. But the simplest reason for not having his car in the driveway when he claimed to be doing yard work was that he needed his driveway clear to quickly and quietly move something or someone from one vehicle to another. We finally had enough for a search warrant. The address: Thomas Peterson's impeccably kept two-story house. 31 years is a long time. People move. People renovate. But Peterson hadn't moved. He had lived in that house since 1985. The only major change was an addition he'd built in 2005, a large, attached garage workshop. On a cold Tuesday morning, we executed the warrant. Peterson was calm, almost bored, when we showed up. "What is this about, Detective Riley? This is ridiculous." I looked him right in the eye. "It's about a little boy named James Miller, Mr. Peterson. October 13th, 1991. His composure finally cracked. Not with a shout or a flinch, but a slow, complete draining of color from his face. The kind of look that tells you everything you need to know. We started with the house. Nothing. It was clean, ordinary. Then the garage workshop, the addition. It was neat, lined with tools and workbenches. But I noticed the floor. It was poured concrete like the rest of the garage, but one section, under a heavy, old woodworking bench, was a slightly different shade of gray. It was subtle, maybe just 5 feet by 3 feet, like it had been poured at a different time or maybe recently patched. I had the team move the bench. The difference in the concrete was unmistakable. We brought in ground-penetrating radar. The scanner lit up immediately. There was a disturbance, a break, about 4 feet down. This was it. The air in the garage got heavy. Peterson stood against the wall, silent now, just watching. The excavation took hours. Every shovelful of dirt was like turning a page of a terrible, forgotten history book. At first, it was just dirt and rock. Then, we hit something soft. We stopped the digging and started using small hand trowels and brushes. And then we saw it. A faint, dark piece of fabric. As we cleared away the last of the soil, we uncovered what had been hidden for 31 years. It was a small, cloth-bound children's Bible. It was James's, the one his mother had seen him leave with. And lying next to it, tucked under a small, faded blue blanket, were the remains of little James Miller. The police lights outside the house were spinning, casting red and blue shadows over the quiet street. Neighbors were starting to gather. They saw the coroner's van. They saw the faces of the uniformed officers. They knew something big had happened. But they had no idea who was responsible. I sat Thomas Peterson in the interrogation room. The gentle, silver-haired pharmacist, the beloved coach, now just a man staring at the table, finally stripped bare of his long-kept lie. The interview didn't last long. I placed the evidence photo of the children's Bible on the table. He didn't look up. He just started talking in a low, flat voice. He admitted he was driving the loaner car that day because his primary car had a small dent he didn't want the church volunteers to see. He wasn't supposed to be near the church. He was supposed to drop off some supplies at the back entrance for the fall festival setup. He saw James walking alone, recognized him from church. He pulled up, opened the passenger door, and asked James if he could use his help carrying something heavy into the church, saying it was a secret surprise for the Sunday school class. James, trusting the friendly face of a church volunteer, walked right to the car. Peterson hadn't planned it. It was a crime of opportunity, fueled by a hidden darkness that had been boiling beneath his perfect exterior. He drove James to his house, and in a moment of pure, terrible panic, after James realized he wasn't going to the church, Peterson ended his life. The details of what happened next are too horrific to share, but the essence is this. He buried the boy where he knew he wouldn't be found, under a spot in his yard where he later built his workshop to ensure no one would ever dig there. He put a big workbench over it, a symbol of his respectable, busy life. He used his good name and his volunteer status as a shield for 3 decades. The arrest was a silent, cuff-clicking walk through the front door of his home. But the news? The news hit Madison like a wrecking ball. The local pharmacist, the youth coach, Thomas Peterson, the man who had been at every town meeting, every school fundraiser, every single community event for 31 years, was James Miller's killer. People didn't just feel shock, they felt a physical sickness. The grief over James's loss was immediately overshadowed by the terrifying realization of who had been among them. The mother who bought cough syrup from him, the father who shook his hand on the soccer field, the children who saw him as a hero. Every interaction was now poisoned. The shocking twist of the community's pillar being revealed as a monster is what truly defines a cold case. It shows you that evil doesn't always wear a mask of shadows. Sometimes it wears a smile and a pharmacist's coat. 31 years. The parents of James Miller finally got to lay their son to rest. It didn't heal the wound, but it cauterized the bleeding. And all of it came down to a tiny, faded pine tree sticker on a car bumper that everyone else had dismissed as a background detail. It's a reminder, my friends, that the truth is always there, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone to stop rushing and truly look. The story of James Miller is solved, but the questions it raises about trust, community, and the faces we see every day will haunt Madison forever. I'm Detective Alex Riley, and I won't stop searching for the answers hidden in the papered dust of the past. If this story shook you, if it made you look twice at the cold cases you thought were impossible to solve, then you know you need to be part of what we do here. Hit that like button and subscribe right now, because every week we dive into a new case, a new mystery, and a new truth waiting to be uncovered. And if you think you might have information about a cold case in your own town, don't keep it to yourself. Reach out to your local authorities. It only takes one small detail, one tiny piece of forgotten evidence, to finally bring a killer to justice. The search for the truth never ends, and we need you with us. Do not click away. We have more secrets to uncover next week. Make sure that notification bell is rung, so you don't miss the next shocking revelation.